Welcome to Beacon of Light Radio, where you're about to take a journey through consciousness with your hosts Valerie Camozzi and Tracie Mahan.
Welcome to this week's Journey Through Consciousness with Tracie Mahan and myself, Valerie Camozzi. Last week on Beacon of Light Radio, we talked about all things quantum healing hypnosis technique, and we had a great time. And this week, we're going to be talking about otherworldly contacts. But before we get started, Tracie and I would like to take a moment of silence to send love, prayers, and healing thoughts to all those affected by the California wildfires and for all those experiencing natural disasters occurring around the world. So just a moment of silence to send these healing thoughts, love, and prayers. Thank you. And now I would like to bring on my dear friend, colleague, and co-host, Tracie. Hi, Tracie.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight, listening to the show. Excited about this subject. This will be a good one.
Yes, otherworldly contacts. So many thoughts, so many ideas. Where would you like to start, Tracie?
To get started. And what you're not seeing is me rubbing my hands together maniacally. This is my jam. Okay. I don't know. We could start with...
I know. I have an idea. There was a flying object over your house witnessed by you and your son. Why don't you tell us about that?
That's a good start. There's so many amazing things that can happen. We just got to look up. And so, so my son and I, we would go lay on the trampoline and we would watch the stars and we would look for ships and, off in the distance, sometimes they're satellites, sometimes they're ships, sometimes they're shooting stars. Who knows? But it's still fun to watch. And we're laying there looking at the stars and all of a sudden these two ships just flew over like, who knows how fast that was going. It was fast. And the only way that I knew I actually saw it is that he jumped up at the same time I did and looked in the same direction I did. And then it was about maybe 30 seconds later, we had some jets fly over the house that also seemed a little suspicious that if we didn't see it, then what are the jets doing here? So that was a pretty incredible night. That was one that was stuck with me, obviously. That's been probably about 4 years now since that happened. But yeah, lots of different forms of contact. So that would be one out of this world kind of a thing to see or experience. What about you, Valerie? What kind of seeing and experiencing have you done? Let's go to ships for you. Have you seen any ships?
Well, I don't know that I've seen ships. I've definitely seen lights. Although I was with you when you visited California and we were driving back from Oakland, and you saw something in the clouds and you just started snapping pictures. Do you have any of those pictures to post in the chat?
Of all the things that you're asking me to post in the chat, I'm trying to remember where I put my cloud pictures. So let me look for those.
Well, speaking of clouds,
I'm going to put the Jesus one on there because that one popped up when I put the cloud.
Okay. Tell us about that.
So I want to tell you about that. So the California trip, I got off the airplane and I couldn't stop looking up. And we had, as we were driving, And poor Valerie got the assignment of driving while Tracie drooled in the car and looked up at the sky. So, but there was circles in the clouds, like these giant circles. And I'm like, that's something, I'm taking a picture. And so then I just started looking up. And when we were in Arkansas, we went to see the Passion of Christ. Am I saying that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Passion Place. That's what it was called, Passion Place. And it was a Christ statue, and very specific with this. And I put it in the chat room. I hope you guys can go there. That's Beacon of Light Radio chat in Facebook. And if you are on my Facebook page, please go to my page. I put a link there if you're having trouble finding it. But Beacon of Light Radio chat on Facebook. Anyway, so here's this big statue of Jesus with his arms straight out, and hard to miss. And I'm looking up in the clouds, and there's the exact image in the clouds that day. So I took a picture of that. That's in the chat room. I'll see if I can find the circular clouds. But, oh, I know where I can find that. So, Valerie, now you got to tell a story why I look for that so I don't sound choppy and weird and, yeah.
Okay. Well, I had a Hawaiian experience recently. I was there in October, and I was on the Big Island, and it was an incredible private tour with Michelle Pillen. And it was through her company, Sacred Circle Journeys. And just to let people know, Michelle is leading a Sacred Circle journey to Machu Picchu, Peru, May 10th through the 21st on 2019. And it's going to be a fabulous, mystical journey, because when you travel with her, just like when you travel with Tracie, amazing things happen throughout the trip. And
or Valerie, but okay.
But I was just on her Sacred Aloha journey, and she previously led a wonderful trip to Peru in 2016, and I was on that troop. And now she's, just to get back to Michelle, she's taking another small, intimate group in 2019. So check out her Peru itinerary and go to her website, sacredcirclejourneys with an S.com. I highly recommend traveling with her. So Hawaii, I was with Michelle. She conducted this private tour for this other woman and myself. And Michelle led the journey with Jennifer and I. And oh my gosh, we had so many experiences while there. Now, I didn't really see a pattern until Michelle and I started talking about it. And it started out on the Big Island. She had arranged for us to go to an environmentally conscious company, go with them to Mauna Kea. And it's a mountain that's considered sacred to the native Hawaiians. It's got the Subaru telescope, it's got the observatories, NASA's infrared telescope, to take advantage of Mauna Kea's location near the equator, which is a beautiful place to observe the stars, the planets. Well, I'm just going to say that was the beginning. We had this great guide, and he took us, we had stopping places along the way because Mauna Kea is higher than Machu Picchu. It's over 13,000 feet. So they acclimate you slowly. But it was great because we had like an astronomy class. He showed us all the constellations. We saw Sirius, we saw Orion's Belt, and we saw a lot of other constellations. So that was really fun. And the observatories, when you get up there, I couldn't believe it. It's like a Canadian observatory. There's one from France, University of Hawaii. There's multiple. It's really an impressive place when you get up to the top of the mountain. So, okay, that was the beginning of the journey. Then we were swimming with the dolphins, and we swam with Joan Ocean, who's a researcher and considered a dolphin whisperer. She's an authority on dolphin communication, so that was really fun. And we went out 2 days with her, so that was great. But we literally swam, even in one in-the-water experience, hundreds and hundreds of dolphins. I don't know where they all came from, but there were hundreds of spinner dolphins. in the water, and they swam beneath us and they swam around us. But at one point when I was swimming, you asked for the story, here we go. At one point when I was swimming with Michelle and Jennifer, it was interesting because all these were spinner dolphins, and all of a sudden a bottlenose dolphin surfaced a few inches from me. I mean, I could have, it was like less than 10 inches away from me. And almost its entire body was visible out of the water and close to me. And then the dolphin turned when it was on top of the water to look at me in the eye. It made direct eye contact. And it seemed like all time stopped. Time slowed down, suspended moment. I don't know what happened, but how could a dolphin stay on top of the water that long? I guess they can, but it was like only the tail was in the water. It was very interesting looking back on it. And Michelle was just a few feet away, so she observed the whole thing. And it was incredible. You just felt so much love. But I felt like the dolphin was communicating with me in kind of symbols, but with all this love energy. And I felt like the dolphin was kind of reading my energy and maybe my mind, I don't know. But when the dolphin was finished communicating, it just kind of dove back into the water. But it was an incredible, beautiful experience. So what happened? Go ahead.
So dolphins
Yes.
are very telepathic, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They
Go ahead.
are. And it was, yeah, very telepathic, sonar, amazing. But then, I don't know, another time, and this was unrelated to that time, but it was still on the Big Island, it was still in Hawaii. I was snorkeling with some friends, and I was really new to it, so I was just getting used to it. And it was a very protective area, so only 2 or 3 of us could get in the water, and at a time, and somehow I guess I was one of the 3 that went in the water. And so the dolphins were spinning like right underneath my stomach, and they were just playing and spinning and had these rings, circle water rings, and it was really cool. And it was funny because although I'm a pretty good swimmer, I don't get the opportunity to swim all the time. So I was just taking my time in the water, and it was like they were taking their time with me. But the next thing that happened was really interesting. I don't know how it happened. You're not supposed to be more than 100 feet or 500 feet. I don't remember exactly from the boat, but somehow I got on the other side of the boat and followed the dolphins. So I don't even know if I went under it, around the boat, or what. And I started swimming out into open sea. I was happy as as happy camper, just
happy as a dolphin swimming out to
I
sea.
almost said that. That's funny you said that. But I was swimming, and I guess I didn't realize how far away I was. So my friends kind of panicked and dove into the water to try to catch up with me, but there was no catching up with me. I mean, I was way out there. And then I thought I heard a voice, and it was like, again, nails on a chalkboard. And I put my head up and looked, and I could barely see the boat. The boat was moving to me, coming closer to me. And thank goodness, because I had a long way to swim back. But I think I would have just kept going with the dolphins. I mean, I had no fear, anything. And they said, wow, from not knowing how to snorkel to booking out to sea, it was quite a transition. But those dolphins are
did
amazing.
the voice sound like this? Clicking heels and no place like home, no place like home.
No, but it was more like, seriously, what's that sound? It's horrid. But it was fine. It was just when they kind of sonar you and you're swimming with them, you have this incredible energy. You can go forever. When that sonar stops, it's like, oh my God, I've got to swim back to the boat that far. How the heck am I going to get there? but I did, and it was great. But that was kind of a couple Hawaiian experience swimming with the dolphins. I wonder if the dolphins are a species, interplanetary species here
You know,
for us.
I've definitely wondered that myself with dolphins and just the different stories you hear about dolphins and their intelligence and their communication and their kindness, and they're just a very special and unique animal. So,
Well, you hear about them in Australia and different areas where they've actually filmed them protecting a swimmer when there's a shark in the water so
hmm
that the shark can't attack. And so they're guardians. They're definitely an incredible species. But
yeah.
just to finish the Hawaii story, when we drove all around the island, the big island, in the car, Jennifer kept saying, like Tracie, look at that cloud, look at that cloud. And these clouds were a little different from the ones you and I saw. They were more cigar-shaped and tubular.
hmm
And
And you say that, keep talking. I'm going to post another picture.
and so we kept seeing them. So it didn't matter whether we were on the boat or whether we were in the car or we were outside, we kept seeing these clouds. And Jennifer spotted them. I mean, and they were exactly the same, almost like they were following us. And they really looked like ships in the sky. But we were having such a good time with the camaraderie and our open hearts, and that was thanks to the dolphins. But one night, when I was sleeping, yes, we were in a house, a beautiful house, out in a remote area, nothing behind us, only land, and I was on the top floor, and I had doors that opened up, it was beautiful, to an upstairs deck, and I had a window directly across from my bed that opened to the roof. The windows open literally on top of the roof. And you couldn't see anything except for the top of the roof. Well, I woke up in my room, which was pitch dark, no lights, and I look out my window and there's two very bright, I mean, extremely bright circular lights. It lit up the whole room. So I sat up in bed wondering where the heck the lights were coming from. And they were so intense. I finally, eventually, I mean, I sat up, I looked, I couldn't figure out where they were coming from. They weren't on the deck. They were right outside that window on the roof. There's no lights on the roof. I finally just covered my head with the sheets and fell back asleep. Well, I know, what else do you do? So,
Yeah. Big, bright UFO-ish looking lights outside. Roll over, cover head, go back to sleep. Yeah.
that works. Well, I wasn't the only one apparently who did that, because in the morning when I got out of bed to see if there were any lights outside or on the roof or on the property where the house was, there was nothing. We were in a remote area. But I mean, you looked outside, you could see vegetation, beautiful trees, acres of land, but nothing on it. So there were no outside lights to explain what I saw. Okay, whatever, go on right along. I even tried lying down on the bed in the morning to see if I could see any lights outside, and there was nothing. So it was crazy. I couldn't explain the lights, but I'm not giving much thought. I went downstairs and I was telling Michelle about the lights when she told me she had seen lights too and couldn't figure out where they were coming from either. So she said, well, she's very light sensitive and has to sleep in a very, very dark room. And I was on the upper level, then there's the middle level, which is the main, and then there's a lower level, and she was on the lower level. And she had this large floor to ceiling glass window facing the backyard. There's no lights out there. Because we were in an isolated area, there were no street lights, there wasn't anything. But, oh my gosh, she got woken up, of course, like I got woken up, and she was facing what I call a wall of windows, facing the empty lot outside, and she saw stars through the large banyan trees, which was beautiful, she said. But then she kind of noticed it, yellowish red lights shining through the branches. So of course, curiosity, she got out of bed to explore. I just sat in bed and watched. I didn't get up or out. But she's really curious and she wanted a closer look. So she noticed two circular lights about 3 feet apart from each other, shining like headlights toward her. Well, that's what I was seeing. But what she couldn't figure out when she got up and looked out the windows, they were hovering outside. What?
Nice.
What? So she said we did a lot that day, and we had gotten to the place where we were staying. We had driven down the island and done some other activities and hikes. And so she said she got really tired and she went back to bed, and she had to make a blockade because the lights were there with pillows and putting the blankets and sheets over her head, which is what I did. But it wasn't until we both shared our experiences about what we experienced the night before, it took on a whole different meaning. So was it a craft? Who knows? But it was something really, really unusual.
That
And
wasn't there any other night, and not
way
there in the
too
morning.
big to be a drone. I mean, this was gigantic. It couldn't be a drone. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's my little experience.
So there's that. I put a picture of a cigar-shaped UFO in the chat room if you guys kind of want to get an idea of that shape. And they're huge, and and they're common. So it's no surprise that the cigar-shaped one is what you guys were seeing.
Tracie,
So
you have a story, a healing story with
I do. I love the healing story, and I'm going to post a picture in the chat room for that too, because I was telling Valerie that, you know, I have these experiences, and then I go to see if I can find an image that matches what I'm seeing. And in this case, it was in with the Star Wars people and, you know, the characters of Star Wars, but it was the same image. And so this was probably about 10, no, sorry, I got to gauge it by my divorce. Sorry, guys. I was going through my divorce, so almost 14 years ago. And I was going through a rough time during that. So there was a lot of emotional stuff going on. And one night I was laying in bed and I fell asleep, and I had what I thought was a dream, but probably more an image or a what do you want to call that? A moment where there was this ET, or this extraterrestrial being, very loving being, standing next to me, and it had like this tubular, fleshy hair looking, and you really do got to go to the chat page to look at the picture so you understand what I'm saying. It's almost like horns, but it was part of their head. And this being was putting her hand on my stomach and saying, "I'm going to fix this for you." And I reached up and touched her skin because she had this bluish colored, much like a dolphin skin. And when I touched the skin, it felt like a dolphin. And then all of a sudden I wake up and I can feel the pressure on my stomach. It was still there, and then it lets up, and I can feel the pressure let up on my stomach when I woke up. And it was a couple of days later, the kids had some cartoons on, and I know it was very synchronistic because I looked over and there's a being that looked just like what was standing in my room on that screen. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was thinking, have I seen this cartoon before? Is that why that image was in my head? But I hadn't. And I had never seen anything like it before. But I think I was just getting validation that was something that does exist, and it was in my room. And when you and I were discussing it, when Valerie and I were discussing it the other day, she helped me to realize that the stomach is where she was pushing and putting the pressure, and that's our power chakra. So I was definitely going through my power being drained during that time. And I'm sure that helped me step more into my power during the divorce. So it was very, very powerful moment. That was one of them. Shall we talk about the Reiki crew?
Definitely.
Then there was the two beings that showed up when I went through Reiki training. And I'm going to post pictures of images that resemble them as well. So if you guys make it over to Beacon of Light Radio chat on Facebook. So, so when I went through my Reiki training, there was a lot of practice sessions that needed to be done to get the certification for level 3. And so I was meeting up with another gal. We lived close enough that we were meeting up almost daily because we could. And I was going really deep into the Reiki sessions. And there was times where the gal that was working on me would tell me to breathe because I would go so deep I wasn't breathing. But there was these beautiful very much human looking energies that were coming through, and they wore these blue suits, these blue uniforms, and they would talk to us when I would go into these deep states of the Reiki. And as I looked into it the other day, as I was telling Valerie about these experiences, I thought, I'm going to look into that. They are the Palladians, so that definitely resonates. They were giving us some messages. The gal I was working with would ask questions. I would get the answers. Very much channeling through these beings and getting some really great information at the time. And probably, in hindsight, I wish I knew more of what I know now. Because I would ask a lot different questions than, hey, am I going to get a new car in the next 6 months? That's the level of questions we're asking on some of it. And it was just like, oh my gosh, if I knew who I had, I would have been asking really deep questions. But at the time, I had never done anything like that before. So that was one of the first times I had channeled beings like that in. So that was quite an experience as well. And I'm going to do one more picture. When I took my Reiki training, I got symbols for the person that was on the table being my guinea pig. And it was a friend of mine. His name's Scott. And when I put him on the table, all of these symbols and a what do I want to call the crisscross pattern, an activation or I don't even know what to call it now. Anyways, the pictures are in there. There was four different symbols that came in during that training that were not of anything I've seen in this world, and I was shown almost like a metallic-y looking presence to these symbols, and I was supposed to envision them above my client who's on the table and move them in a spinning motion, and they would show me which way to spin them for the client that was on the table. And how to work. At the time, they were showing me how to work with that energy in my mind and put them on the table and do different activation. That only ended up happening a couple of times, and then it didn't come back again after that. So apparently I did what I was supposed to do with it, but that was another experience that I was wondering at the time as I'm taking Reiki going, is this normal? Or do other people get things like this? And then my teacher said, you need to go write it down. So, all right. Anyway, so those are kind of some of my stories of doing healing.
Question: did other people get information like that when they were working on Reiki?
Not the same as what I got, but she did go into how other people they'll get information or they'll get guidance on what to do. But when I was showing them the symbols, she had never seen anything like that before. So that was,
and so
I was original.
Did you write it down?
I did. I posted the picture of it in the chat room.
Great.
The drawing. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, yeah. So it looks like this might be a good time to take a commercial break. Perfect. All right, you guys. So if everybody will just hang in there, take a little break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. So hang in there. Come back.
Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and so does psychic medium Bob Brown. England's renowned paranormal investigator will explore the world of the unknown with special guests that will thrill and expand your mind. Tune in to Over the Rainbow with host Bob Brown every Wednesday and Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. in the UK, right here on Beacon of Light Radio.
Welcome to Spiritual Soup with Jules and Wendy, where we mix together a pinch of magic, a dash of love, 3 drips of belief, sprinkling some laughter, and we share it with you. Each week, Jules and Wendy will share their experiences and insights about all things spiritual, magical, and mystical. Jules is a best-selling author, an international clairvoyant, medium, and spiritual life coach. Wendy is an international psychic and holistic practitioner whose specialties include Reiki Master, Crystal Practitioner, and Spiritual Advisor. Together, they form the Spiritual Soup Team. Join us Thursday evenings at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern to experience the magic of Spiritual Soup, only on Beacon of Light Radio.
All right, you guys, welcome back. That was an exciting 2 minutes. You should have heard all the things we talked about when you couldn't hear us. It was the best. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, thank you for coming back. And we are talking about things that are kind of out of this world. And hopefully you can join us in the chat room that is over at Beacon of Light Radio chat and Facebook. We're posting pictures of things out of this world that we have experienced. So...
And now we're going to talk about an experience with charity.
Yes. So that maniacal part of me came out there a little bit. So I was playing with Charity last week, and
After the show.
And we had quite the experience. So let me do a little backstory on that. In August, when I was in Arkansas, I got activated, I guess is the way I would call it. And I have the Octurians channel through me now. And we were talking to Charity after the show, and I couldn't focus. I couldn't complete a sentence. I couldn't do much. And so I asked Charity if I could bring these energies in to talk to her, find out what that was about. And that was happening. We were doing that. And then the last being that came in was this beautiful, beautiful energy. And this is one thing I want to tell you guys. You know, sometimes we look at these energies, these beings that don't look like us, and it can be intimidating. You know, this one had very long neck, kind of an oval or egg-shaped head with big eyes, and it had really long arms. But the energy with this feminine energy that came in was so loving and so nurturing and giving messages to Charity. And the whole time I can feel her sitting in the energy of my body. So I'm like looking at my hands thinking I have these really long arms, and you know, sometimes they'll talk through me, but this one was actually sharing its energy body with me, or however you want to say that. And so I felt like I was actually sitting.
And
Go ahead.
Just so people know, those that don't know Charity, she's our phenomenal producer at Beacon of Light Radio, and we love her. And that's why it's very challenging to get off the radio and not talk to Charity, because she is
that's just not going to happen.
Wealth of knowledge and experience. But okay, back to the story.
Okay, so she's getting these messages, and gosh, we were moving all kinds of things. Energy was flying everywhere. And but I'm sitting at my desk, and I feel like I'm sitting behind a ship, in a cockpit of a ship. And I'm like, I don't know if Charity remembers this. I'm like, my head's moving around. Like, I'm looking at space. I'm like, where am I? And I'm in this ship. And the neat part about it is I felt like the ship was almost like an extension of myself. And if and there wasn't any, like you would think, control panel like in a cockpit or something. It actually seemed like very smooth metallic-y metal, and I knew that if I waved my hand over it a certain way that the ship would do something, and it was kind of intuitive and read my energy, and it was really kind of cool.
You were one with the ship.
I was one with this being, I was one with the ship, and I'm just like, this is cool. And it was interesting because even after Charity and I got done, I feel like that being didn't go away. It was showing me more stuff and giving me more information about how that all worked, because in the moment I was just kind of like, where am I? And then now I feel like I could tell you a lot of details about that. So anyways, it's one of those things where I don't know what a lot of people might think contact is like with extraterrestrials, but they're telepathic, and I don't know that there's any of them that are on the benevolent ET spectrum that would actually show up, like, say, in your bedroom, or they're not going to do anything that scares you. And
are you finding that even in your hypnotherapy sessions, QHHT, that more and more people are having experiences instead of past life, other experiences, or it might be a past life, but other worldly contact experiences where they're actually a being themselves, and they come through and they remember and they describe? Because what you were describing in that being and being that one with that ship, those are some of the sessions that are happening. I think people are more awake and more in tune, and the information is coming through.
Let's throw this out there really quick. What she's talking about is the quantum healing hypnosis technique that both Valerie and I are practitioners of this technique. And we take you into that higher self where you can go into those places of getting answers. But sometimes people will go into these places and have other experiences. And if you missed last week's show, please go listen to the archive, because we talked about that a little bit. But yeah, I had, see, this is where it's good to take notes. I was going to tell you a story of one of the experiences that one of my clients had. Oh, yeah, I had this client that she went into a lifetime where she was on another planet, and she lived a very long lifetime, and then that body finally kind of got worn out, and so she made the conscious choice to leave that body and then reincarnate into a new body, into an infant or whatever. But she said in that particular reality, you got to keep all of your knowledge. So everything she had learned from prior lifetimes in that world, she took with her to this new body, and as that body evolved, it learned even more stuff. So she never lost any of her knowledge, and which for that particular client made so much sense, because knowledge is very important to her. And so it was kind of neat to see and experience that with her, to hear that story that, she spent many lifetimes in that reality where she would evolve and gain knowledge and take it with her and go into the next body. And so that was kind of fun. But yeah, definitely a lot more experiences with that.
Don't you wonder if our science fiction writers actually have had experiences or past lives, and a lot of that information comes through, or they have a connection with otherworldly contact, and that information comes through and assists them in their writing? I mean, we have Star Trek and so many others.
So many others. And like I said, when I get a vision of an extraterrestrial, and I'll go Google, things that I think might be keywords to help me find it, it's almost always in Star Wars. It's like, okay, George Lucas, what do you know that we don't know? But, there is so much. I can't watch Star Wars now without wondering, okay, is that a real being? Is that, something that he saw or experienced or was shown in his third eye and his telepathic connection with whatever is around him? One of the things that I've learned with the Arcturians coming through is that there are many, many councils. And I was brought to a room of where the councils met. And again, I was like, I feel like I'm in Star Wars. It was a little bit different than the way that's set up.
I think it's good, though. That's almost like a reference point so other people can understand what you experience. So, yeah.
Exactly. And, and it was an amazing experience to be conscious of this large space of many councils. And, and this has only been going on for a few months, but I've talked to Imperials, Syrians, Arcturians. I laugh because one group, I don't know what their real name is, but I was calling them the Giants because they were very big. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not what their name is. They're probably the Nordics, but my Arcturian was calling them the Giants. And I knew when I was hearing it that wasn't accurate for what they're really called. But, the fairy realm came through. There's just been, it's off the charts. And if I can just let go of any of my doubt around it, then it opens the door for more to come in. In California, I was riding along in a Merkaba and the Orion's Belt and was getting confirmation for all the things I was seeing in the sky. So, there was a lot going on. But anyway, so that was my 5 minutes of fame. Now let's go back to you, Valerie.
Well, no, you reminded me in you telling that story, especially the one where you and Charity experienced that being that was actually a part of you. I had a client the other day, and in her session, she was in this bubble, and she was in a body in this bubble, and she discovered she was on a ship. And she was just fascinated by what was going on in the ship. And there was a being, and I don't know how many fingers he actually had, maybe 3, maybe 4, I don't remember. But they were curved to fit into these, I guess they would be lights and buttons on a console in the ship. And there were, I think, like hundreds of other beings, all the same, that were operating these lights and things. And she was amazed by this huge window that she could see out and see other planets. And she said it was beautiful and amazing. But she had this urgency to get down because there was one being that was behind the others, and he, to her, was in charge of what was going on, and they were very, very busy. And at one point, she didn't know if they were actually, it was like a planet that they were helping controlling, like atmosphere or something, or whether it was actually a ship. But she kept trying, she was in a bubble and she was up above, and she kept trying to get down to the leader. Well, all of a sudden he noticed her. I say he, I don't know if it was a gender or not, but he noticed her and she noticed him. And so he was trying to help her come down because that's what she wanted to do. And yet he was working at his own control board. And so he'd look at her, and then she would say, he looks annoyed at me because she kept trying to get down. And I said, well, is he surprised that you're there? She goes, no, it's like he just expects it. Like, oh, it's just another one coming through, trying to observe, whatever. So eventually he helped her get her bubble down. And she kept saying, I have to touch his hand. I have to touch his hand. So they finally joined hands. And he's like, okay. And she was saying his expression looks like, okay, I think we're done now. So she was done. And then, she was back in her bubble and she felt great. And during the session, she kept saying, I feel like I've done this before many times. So I don't know if it's me that he's like, here she comes again, or she kept saying, or if it's like we all come through there at different times to observe. But they
Oh.
wanted to get on with what they were doing. And none of the other crew or whatever you would call them beings saw her, only this one. So she had a connection with it. It was really fascinating.
That's, yeah. So
And
you've never been in a bubble yourself? You've never traveled in a bubble? Bubble?
No.
Bubble?
Not consciously that I know of.
You're telling that story, and it's reminding me of going through a wormhole. Well, that's the best way I could describe it. One of the times, those gravity chairs, by the way, I never know if I want to tip back in them anymore or not, because I sat in one of those, and we were going to go into a session, and I sit back and I lean my chair back.
And were you the client?
I was. Yeah, I do this exchange every once in a while with a friend of mine, and we take turns going into different channels. And so I lean the chair back, and all of a sudden I am just hanging on for dear life, and I am moving through this tunnel, and it's fast. You know, you think you go fast down those stinking water slides at the water park. No. I was like getting nauseous. And then all of a sudden it stopped, and the side of it opened, and it looked like a mall or something on the other side of it. And I was like, that's weird. That shuts, and off we go again. And I don't remember the rest of that because that one's been a little while, but I do remember being in that tunnel thinking, I'm getting sick. So
it's too fast. Slow down.
It was fast. It was fast, and it was. I know we went somewhere with that, and I can't remember where we went, and obviously I wasn't supposed to remember. But one of the things, we've brought up Orion's belt a few times in Orion, and it made me think of, and I don't know if I'm saying it right, the Lyrans, or the Lyrans, the feline extraterrestrials. Oh my gosh, if they would visit me every day, it would be the best life ever. They're so amazing. So I had a friend that was doing energy work on me, and two of them showed up. And it took me a second to figure out who is in the room, but it started off with the female one, and she was clearing some of the energy that was going on for me at the time. And then this male shows up, and he's laughing, and he's like, you humans are kind of funny. And I'm in my mind going, how so? And he goes, you put people on pedestals, or you put people above yourselves. And the message was so amazing because it was about not ever seeing anyone above or more important than you. And he found humankind a little comical because we do that all the time. We do it with doctors, we do it with teachers, we do it with, police officers, people of authority, and we make them more important than us. And the message was that everyone is the same, and there's not one person on this planet that is more important than the other. And it was very powerful, but the energy that they came through with was so loving that I was just like, just stay here for a minute. And then when they left, it was like, no. But when your heart chakra gets open like that, it's like, it was very powerful. So
amazing energy. What a wonderful story.
Yeah, and something you said reminded me of it, and I can't remember, but you guys are going to hear that a lot in the show. I can't remember. I don't remember what we said, what we did, but this had happened. So, yeah. Okay, tag.
My turn. Well, the thing that comes to mind, and again, the experience can be explained in many different ways, but I lead sacred journeys to Peru. I've led them to Egypt, and I've led a couple to Southwest England. And I led them with my dear friend and colleague, her, Erica Longden. Mm-hmm. And one day when we were in Glastonbury, which has many, many ley lines, energy lines that cross, and they call it the Michael line and the Mary line. And if you look at a map of Glastonbury, there's many energetic lines that intersect and cross there. Well, we had a free day. You know, we had visited the tour, and we had visited the Abbey and Chalice Well and all the places around Glastonbury. So this was a free day for participants. So one of the participants and I just went down the main street in Glastonbury, and we decided to go get coffee and a salad. So we went into this cafe. I should have known by the name of the cafe. It was called the Galactic Cafe. Didn't even think twice about that. It's no longer there. But we went into this Galactic Cafe, and we sat down, and lots of people. It was packed. We're at tables, you know, and things, individual tables. We were at a communal table, but it was just the two of us. So we were sitting, we were chatting about a lot of different things. And all of a sudden I looked around and I see people. Now you've got to imagine this. Their fork is going in slow motion, taking about 5 minutes to reach their mouth. And it's like, and all of a sudden nobody's talking where it was just bustling before. And I looked to the participant, I said, we have to go. She goes, what's wrong? I said, we have to go now. And I looked around, and originally the people that had served us, there were two young servers that were in their 20s. And when I looked behind the counter now, there were two older women behind the counter, and the two young servers had like a white shirt on. The guy had a black pants on. The woman had a black skirt on. And now I'm looking, these two elderly women have long white tunics and white pants. And I'm looking around at this restaurant with no noise going on and people in very slow motion. So I said, we have to go. We have to go. Well, we went in there in daytime, and now it was nighttime. And I don't know how this huge amount of time passed, because it felt like 5 minutes. So we got out of there. My friend, the participant, said, so what just happened? I said, I don't know, but we need to leave. So we had paid our bill, we left. And even when we were paying our bill, it was like, okay, have a nice evening. I mean, everything
creepy. She's creeping me out, you guys.
No, it wasn't creepy, but it was just different.
Do the voice again. Okay.
So what do you think about an experience like that? Was it a ship? Did we go somewhere? Was it just, you know, the glitch of time, a dimensional glitch, a vortex? I don't know, but we all decided, and Erica and I decided, if I go back in there again, I have to go with very grounded people to go in there. And the other participant was very grounded, but somehow she went where I went, wherever that was. But it was Galactic Cafe, and it does not exist anymore.
Now, that one is a good question, and I would love to, at some point, ask our little Octorians, where did you go?
Yeah.
Because that's fascinating. I don't think you were on this planet anymore. You went somewhere.
I think, you know, who knows? And just the fact that nobody was talking, and when we walked in there, it was so loud. It's a small place. It's not gigantic. And everybody was eating and talking. And when we left, no one's talking. And I said to my friend, I said, look around. What do you notice? And she goes, it's very quiet. I said, yeah. You see how slow they're moving? And it was, yeah. It was very interesting.
Oi, oi. All right. Hey, have you ever had a Bigfoot experience?
No, I have not. Have you?
In a reading I did. But I was doing a reading. It wasn't a regression or anything. But I was sitting there going, there's this energy behind you, very feminine energy. And all of a sudden it was this humongous Bigfoot. It was a mama Bigfoot. And that was an interesting day, because I'm just like, oh, we have Bigfoot. But she was very, very mothering, very maternal, and
You could
nurturing.
feel it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, I've heard stories that, they can shift their vibration so we can't see them. And that if they trust you, they will show themselves. I didn't see it with a physical eye, but the energy of this Bigfoot with the client was very pronounced. And I was just like, this is really cool. I got Mama Bigfoot. So, but it was, there's another dimensional being though. They can move into different dimensions and move back into ours. And there's supposedly a family of Bigfoot up by Mount Adams, and like there's a juvenile one that plays pranks and will do things to people to get their attention. And so it's kind of fun to wonder about the Bigfoot. But the stories that I have heard is if you go into the forest with a pure heart, no cameras, no I'm going to catch Bigfoot, no no motives, just a nice pure heart, and they can sense that. And if it's for real, they'll show themselves to you, and people have had experiences with that. So I just was wondering if you had any experiences with Bigfoot.
No, but that's another otherworldly contact, just by the mere fact that they're interdimensional. There's something I've noticed, and a friend of mine's noticed, and we started saving pictures. She has a whole collection of them, where you take a picture, and maybe other people have experienced this, where the person is standing there, but part of their body is not there in the picture. And there's nothing wrong with the picture. And I've seen this on cameras, on phones, on various cameras. And there's a pattern. So maybe a professional photographer could tell you why that phenomena happens. But if you look at these pictures, they're pretty amazing. It's just like when you capture orbs on pictures.
Right.
Or light streams on pictures. You know, they're phenomenal. It's pretty interesting.
Very fun. Well, maybe we'll have to talk more about that next week. But in the meantime, Valerie, how would people find you if they would like a session with you?
They can find me at ValerieCamozzi.com. And how about you, Tracie?
They can find me at TracieMahan.com. And as always, I will spell it TracieMahan. And look at that. It's popping up in the chat room as we speak, because Charity is amazing.
She is. I won't give her up.
No. We're going to keep her. Sorry, guys. She won't be here for the next show because Valerie and I have her. We're doing an abduction. So, all right. Well, I guess that's the end of the show. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. And if you're listening to the archives, thank you for joining us in the archives. And remember, if you are in the archives, you should hopefully still be able to find our chat feed in Beacon of Light Radio chat if you'd like to see the pictures. All right. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Charity. It's been another fun night.
Until next week.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us this evening on Journey Through Consciousness. We hope you enjoyed the journey. You can reach Tracie Mahan at TracieMahan.com and Valerie Camozzi at ValerieCamozzi.com. Tune in next Wednesday right here on Beacon of Light Radio. See you then.